What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to my poker channel. My name is Andreas and I'm a poker player from Switzerland, now living in Austria. If you're interested in poker news, poker life and poker strategy, consider hitting that subscribe button down here because I talk about these topics here on this channel all the time. In today's video, I'm going to talk about my live poker trip to EPT Barcelona, where I was playing poker cash games, PLO to be exact. 5-5 to 10-20. I'm going to bring up some hand histories in this video. But before I head into this, I want to quickly announce that I'm going to have Poker Pro Dominik Nitsche here on the Poker Player Podcast tomorrow. It's going to be here on YouTube, 4 p.m. Central European Time. I'm also going to announce it on Twitter and Instagram. You can see the links in the description below if you don't want to miss that episode of the Poker Player Podcast. Now, let's head into my trip to Barcelona and what happened there. Well, first of all, I had a great trip. Poker-wise, maybe not so much other than poker, but I played lots of poker and it's been going well. The first 4 days, I pretty much didn't lose a hand. Sometimes it was just way too easy. Here's a hand history. Undergun limps for 20 euros and then somebody isolates him to 90 euros. I cold call from the small blind with King 10-8 double suited. The undergun player who is very loose just calls. And the initial raiser obviously has raised to 90 and we see a flop three-way. The flop is 8-3 deuce rainbow. We have top set, nice life, we check. Under the gun now pots, indicating that he has a really good hand. The isolator from middle position now fold, no, he calls actually, and I shove the money in. I have top set, easy game. And the undergun player shows up with, he stacks it in as well. And he shows up with threes. He has one out. Sometimes way too easy. He whiffs the one out within like a 5k pot at 10-20 PLO. If it were only that easy all the time, if you got like one hand like this once a week in Barcelona, it can basically save your trip or make your trip or whatever. And this has not been the only hand that has been going that far, like that. As a matter of fact, in 5-5 and 5-10, I had plenty of hands like these where people would just have very few outs and get it in and go broke. All in all, though, I have to warn you guys that if you come to EPT Barcelona, you're going to have a lot of different experiences at the cash game tables in particular. Because a lot of regulars will show up to EPT Barcelona, and depending on which table you are, on some tables, the action is just not that good. I cannot really speak for no limit hold'em cash games that much because I don't play them so often these days. So I don't know what's going on in 5-5 and 5-10 games, but typically I think that you shouldn't be grinding 5-5 no limit hold'em in Barcelona. Maybe it's an okay thing to do, but the cost of living in Barcelona is fairly high. Hotels are fairly expensive. If you compare it to a place like Prague, for example, which is a place I go to often in December. Because you spend so much money, you have to make more money at the tables if you want to be profitable at the cash game tables, of course. And I would say that all in all, Barcelona for that is not going to be the best place if you play 5-5. I would start playing 5-10 for the most part, not only because of making enough money, but also because 5-10 actually has a lower rake. Yes, you heard it right. In Europe, rake is going to be pretty high in most of the places, but Barcelona during the EPT cash games has a 2.5% rake at 5-10 with a cap of only 2 big blinds, 20 euros. Only, I'm just comparing it to Europe. Europe has a high rake, and 2.5% cap 20 is actually a pretty good thing. If you go higher though, the cap's going to be 40 euros, so that's fairly high because here we're going to reach the rake cap really quickly. Let's say if you play 20-50 euro PLO, somebody raises to 200 bucks, somebody calls, flop is C-bet and a call. We already reached the rake cap very quickly, and in 3-bet pots it happens almost every time. So, you can see that rake will impact obviously how much you can win at the tables, and you will be really selective of which games you play. But there's so much to choose from in Barcelona. I think there were cash games up to 85 tables at some point, which is a lot of cash game tables to choose from, especially if you play both No Limit and Pot Limit Omaha, and you can always hop in between tables. The waitlists are something that are concerning if you just play one form of poker like 5-5 no limit and you are not able to play higher than that, because then you might have to wait for the cash games a very long time. So again, don't go to Barcelona to play 5-5 no limit, because the waitlist might be 150 players long. There might be actually 50 players on that waitlist who are sitting in a 5-10 game or in a PLO game, and they're blocking your seats sometimes, which is just how it goes these times. Barcelona as a casino and as a poker operator, because there are so many tables, the cash games are not that fairly organized, and what makes it worse is that there are still some scammers around, and they will be not held accountable in Barcelona. For example, there's the run it twice scam, which is fairly well known among regulars now in Barcelona. But if you're there for the first time, it might be that you don't know about this scam. So the way it goes is, if you are all in poker, in order to reduce variance, you sometimes can run it 2 times. You can do that online on a lot of sites. And what would happen in these live poker cash games is that if an old Spanish guy, which is mostly the villain here, it's a fact, it's not racist or anything, he will basically win the first time and then say that he didn't understand the run it twice and he wants to run it once. If he calls over the floor management, whether that person might be somehow involved with this guy or just not be able to make another decision than to give him right, is up to debate. But I don't want to accuse them of doing that, I guess, on YouTube here. But what will happen is the floor will rule in favor of the old Spanish guy. This is just how it goes in Barcelona. You can change that. If you're running twice with people in Barcelona, be aware that you can only do that with someone who is a gentleman at the game and will not scam you. There's unfortunately examples out there which are clearly the minority who will scam you, and it's just horrible. Let's imagine you play up to I think one time there was a 40k pot, and you would run it twice and win half back, or chop the pot, and then this guy just scams you for 20k. There's been plenty of examples which have been lower than that for a couple of €1,000, but just be careful with the run it twice in Barcelona. The ruling will not be in your favor. There's also a second thing which is really terrible in Barcelona cash games that you might have to be aware of, and that's the I don't want to call it the third man running rule, but initially the third person who would sit out in the cash games will get blinded for up to 3 orbits. So if you play 5-10, that will cost you $45, which is plenty of money, right? So you want to be careful that, when you're not playing and when you're going to eating, maybe take your stack, go back on the wait list, and then you can come back, and find a new game afterwards. If the game is super good, then I really highly suggest you do something like intermittent fasting and not eat during your grind hours in poker. Only eat in a time restriction of 6 to 8 hours. Eat more calories then, so that you can basically play poker and not having to eat and only having to go to the toilet. If you have to go to the toilet in poker cash games, the way you would do it, you would sit out at the under the gun plus 3 seat or 2 seat, and then you would be back for the big blind, because a lot of the times the rule has been weird and it has not been consistent. When there's, for example, 7 players at the tables or 6 players, the first person sometimes sitting out will get blinded, and you just want to avoid it at all costs. It might actually get rid of all your poker edge if this happens to you all the time, or it might actually make your night in terms of profit, it just lowers your profit basically. So, and it's obviously not cool to get blinded. The rule in itself is obviously somewhat okay, because it prevents people to go on smoking breaks for 45 minutes and not come back, and then the table will break more often, and it is there for a reason. So there's some legitimate arguments to make why these rules are in place in Barcelona. And all in all, I think the cash game experience is still okay, especially because of a slightly lower rate, and especially because you have such a huge abundance of games to choose from. And I think you should really also, look at that, at the positive sides of Barcelona cash games. Also, in terms of stakes, you could play 50, 100, 100, 200, 200, 400. Unfortunately, and that's been the case for poker cash games over the last 2 years a little bit. More and more games have become private. That's a really unfortunate development in poker. I'm going to explain in this channel what I think about private cash games, the new age private cash games, and yeah, going to make it in a video series. I'm also going to have an entire video series which is going to be called What is Good for Poker, What is Bad for Poker on this channel. And if you're interested in that, make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode here coming up in the future. Now, I want to know from you guys, do you have any other questions regarding, when I go to these cash game trips? Let me know in the comment section below if you want to know something specific so I can basically make a video and provide some value for you on YouTube. Yeah, this has been most of it from my cash game trip to Barcelona. Other than that, expenses are going to be high. As I think mentioned before, the hotels are about 120, 130 euro a night if you stay there by yourself. Otherwise, you can maybe sometimes share costs if somebody's on the same sleeping rhythm and so on and so forth. So still somewhat high expenses, not as much maybe as in Vegas, because the food, I think you can find some pretty decent options. I actually even went to the supermarket and got my stuff. I add a fridge. I bring on my own food to Barcelona. I will continue to do so. Bringing your ingredients, for example, from my muesli, from my breakfast, I think was always great, and I will continue to do that just to get some healthy food and not having to always go to a restaurant and potentially also not eat too healthy there. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video about Barcelona. And I hope you look forward to the next videos, and I'm going to see you in those. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe. See you guys next time.